What's good with y'all boys, man? We got another reaction. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I have really been slacking, and I ain't gonna lie, life just kicking my ass. I'm just being completely transparent with y'all boys. Like, I ain't been able to make videos, but I'm trying to get back on my grind. So if I'm all over the place, I'm sorry, but we trying to get some type of consistency back. But today we got another reaction for y'all boys. 3 more disturbing cases that were solved. Not that haven't been solved, but that have been solved. Let's see what it's talking about, bro. I don't know. These videos always be interesting, and y'all boys always like it. So, you know what I'm saying? Let's see what it's talking about.
Rapid City, South Dakota is a mid-sized community nestled in the Black Hills, known for its close-knit neighborhoods and blue-collar workforce. In the early 1990s, the city's economy was anchored by manufacturing and processing plants, including the wood products facility where both Tina Marcotta and Tom Kueter were employed. The plant was a significant local employer, drawing workers from across the region and fostering a workplace environment where employees often knew each other well, both professionally and personally. Tina was a 27-year-old mother of 2 children. She was described by friends and family as outgoing, caring, and deeply committed to her children. At the time of her disappearance, Tina was navigating a difficult period in her personal life, having been separated from her husband. Despite these challenges, she maintained steady employment at the plant, which provided a sense of stability for her and her family.
She was locked in, okay.
Tom was a former longtime employee at the same wood processing plant. Married with children of his own, Tom was known among his co-workers for his skill as a forklift operator. However, some colleagues noted that he could be temperamental, particularly in his interactions with women who did not reciprocate his advances. While there was no public indication of a close personal relationship between Tina and Tom, their paths crossed regularly due to their shared workplace. On the night of June 24th, 1994, Tina finished her late shift at Black Hills Molding. As she left the building around 12:30 a.m., she discovered that her car, a 1984 Dodge, had a flat tire. Realizing she was stranded, Tina returned to the office and used a payphone to call her friend Vicky Riddle for help. During their conversation, Tina noticed a vehicle approaching the plant entrance. She paused the call to check who it was, then returned to the phone and told Vicky that Tom, a former co-worker, had offered her a ride home. Tina thanked Vicky and ended the call. This was the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. Shortly after, Tom left the area with Tina.
You know, her friend, low-key, like, even though there was nothing her friend can do, a lot of times, especially as humans, we just, like, blame ourselves for situations like this. Like, she probably feel like there was something she could have did, even though there was really nothing she could have done.
Tina in his 1975 Pontiac Le Mans. The two had previously worked together at Black Hills Molding and were known to be casual acquaintances. Tom arrived home at approximately 3:30 a.m., according to his wife, Nancy. Nancy later recounted to investigators that Tom immediately washed his clothes and shoelaces, an unusual act for him at that hour. She had no prior knowledge of his whereabouts that night. The following morning, Tina's live-in boyfriend, Patrick Gleason, awoke to find her missing. After contacting Vicky Riddle, he learned about the late-night phone call and Tom's involvement. Patrick called Tom, who agreed to meet him at Vicky's house to discuss the situation. During the meeting, Tom denied giving Tina a ride and insisted she must have been mistaken. When Patrick asked if Tom and Tina were having an affair, Tom denied it, but according to Patrick, did not display his usual assertiveness, which struck Patrick as odd. Later that day, Patrick and Tom went to the Rapid City Police Department to file a missing persons report. Officers located Tina's car in the Black Hills Molding parking lot. The left front tire had been slashed, confirming suspicions of foul play. Thereafter, a homicide investigation was launched. Over the next 2 days, investigators focused on Tom's account of his activities on the night of Tina's disappearance. Tom claimed he had played in a...
There's no way they don't find out, right? This is, like, obviously him, right?
Softball game earlier in the evening, then drove a friend home, dropping him off around 11:30 p.m. He said his car broke down behind the Super Duper grocery store, where he spent nearly 3 hours fixing the carburetor under a streetlight before finally arriving home at 3:30 a.m. without waking his wife or children. While his participation in the softball game and dropping off his friend were corroborated, the rest of his alibi quickly unraveled. Residents near the grocery store told police they had not seen anyone working on a car for
Exactly.
hours that night, and forensic examination of Tom's car revealed no mechanical issues that would support his story. On June 27th, police brought Tom in for a second interview at his current workplace, Forest Products Distributors. Investigators informed him that bloodstains had been found in his car and that DNA testing would determine if they matched Tina. Tom continued to deny any involvement, but was visibly agitated during questioning. Shockingly, on the following morning, June the 28th, Tom was found dead at Forest Products Distributors. Two co-workers discovered his body beneath the rear wheel of his forklift, which was still running. The keys were in his pocket, and the parking brake was later found to be inoperable. The Pennington County coroner initially ruled the death a theorizing that Tom had intentionally placed himself under the forklift to simulate an accident. There were no...
That's such a crazy way to, like, end your life. Like, doing it with a forklift on purpose would seem like it was an accident.
No signs of a struggle or defensive wounds, and no drag marks indicated he had not been moved post-mortem. However, this ruling was later challenged by Tom's family, particularly his wife Nancy, who argued that Tom would never abandon their children and suggested a co-worker with a grudge might have been responsible. In 2000, a judge determined that there was insufficient evidence to conclusively rule the death a suicide, enabling Nancy to collect Tom's life insurance benefits. For over a year, the mystery of...
Wait. So, like, is this the mystery? Because I thought the mystery was about what happened to that lady. It's obviously he did it. But is the mystery who did it to him?
Tina's disappearance persisted. But then on October 11th, 1995, a worker at Forest Products Distributors discovered skeletal remains under a woodpile in a remote section of the lumberyard. Clothing fragments and dental records confirmed the remains belonged to Tina. The autopsy determined that she had died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely inflicted on the night she vanished. Investigators concluded that Tina had been killed elsewhere and her body later hidden at the lumberyard. A critical piece of evidence emerged years later when Tina's daughter disclosed that DNA testing had matched blood found on Tom's shoe to her mother. This finding, though not disclosed in official police reports, was cited by Tina's family as definitive proof of Tom's involvement in her murder. Additionally, bloodstains discovered in Tom's 1975 Pontiac were suspected to belong to Tina, though degradation of the samples prevented conclusive confirmation. The slashed tire on Tina's car, identified as a deliberate act using a knife, became a focal point for investigators. They theorized that Tom had sabotaged the tire to isolate Tina in the parking lot after her shift, creating an opportunity to approach her under the guise of offering assistance. Law enforcement concluded that Tom murdered Tina after she rejected...
I'm not trying to say I'm a detective or nothing, but what happened is kind of obvious. It was obvious. Called her friend because the tire was slashed. Found out that it was actually slashed and not just a flat tire. She disappears. The last person she talked to was the co-worker that crashes out on females. Granted, they didn't know all of these different things yet. But once I collected it, it was obvious. We indicted him. Not even know nothing further that needed to be said. You feel me?
Romantic or sexual advances, a motive inferred from witness accounts of his volatile interactions with women. The confrontation allegedly turned violent when Tina resisted, leading to her death by blunt force trauma. To evade prosecution, police believed Tom staged his death as a suicide by ensuring his family could collect life insurance benefits, a possibility confirmed when a judge overturned the initial suicide ruling in 2000. Tom may have viewed this act as a way to provide financially for his wife and children while avoiding a murder conviction. Tom's family...
Hey, I'm playing devil advocate right now. I'm not saying what he did was right. And I'm not saying this nigga deserved to burn in, hell. But, that was pretty smart. Now they surviving off the life insurance. They got that paid. You gone. You was gonna be gone regardless. Now you gone and your family got money. He played his cards. Well, he should have just not did that. No amount of money in the world is going to change the fact that these two young kids right here are going to have to grow up without their dad. And this lady's going to have to grow up without her husband.
Family consistently disputed the ruling, arguing that the crime scene had been staged to mimic self-inflicted death. Nancy highlighted the lack of a note and Tom's apparent lack of depressive symptoms in the days leading up to his death. She
enough.
also pointed to unresolved
if she did something to someone, if he took someone's life, that's enough to make him want to do it, knowing what's at stake, you know?
leads, including rumors of a co-worker who harbored a grudge against Tom, though no evidence supported this claim.
Like, I get what she's doing. I mean, she's just defending her husband because at the end of the day, don't nobody want to believe that their husband, you know, did something like that and they did something else like that to themselves. But at the same time, you obviously didn't know that much about your husband if you couldn't tell that he literally was out. She just had blind faith in you. That was crazy, though.
Gretchen Burford was born on June 6, 1938 in Seattle, Washington. She spent her formative years in the Pacific Northwest, where she was known for her intelligence and determination. After raising 3 children, Gretchen made a significant life decision in her early 40s. She chose to pursue a career in law, enrolling in law school at the age of 41. By 1984, Gretchen had completed her legal education and established a full-time law practice in Palo Alto, California. She specialized in criminal defense with a particular focus on juvenile law. Her work was characterized by a deep sense of justice and empathy for her clients, many of whom were young people facing challenging circumstances. Gretchen was well integrated into the local community, both professionally and personally. She balanced her demanding career with her roles as a mother and an active participant in local affairs.
Being a mom that's in nursing, law, or like politics or something is crazy. Or just like any field. I don't know. I guess if you got a good husband, y'all can balance it. But like those jobs are so demanding and mentally taxing. I couldn't imagine raising a kid while doing it, you know, maybe after or like later down the line.
Her reputation as a compassionate and principled attorney earned her respect among peers and neighbors. Those who knew her described her as warm, approachable, and deeply committed to helping others, especially vulnerable youth. Now fast forward to the evening of February 26, 1988, where Palo Alto became the scene of a shocking and violent crime. Gretchen, then 49 years old, was finishing her workday and stopped at a local bank to deposit a check valued at around $400. She parked her car in what she considered a safe neighborhood, unaware that this routine errand would be her last. When she returned to her vehicle, she was confronted by a man who either had been waiting nearby or had already hidden himself inside her car. Armed with a knife, the man set in motion a terrifying sequence of events. Under threat from her assailant, Gretchen was forced to drive to another ATM. The motive was clear. The man wanted to withdraw as much money as possible. At the ATM, she attempted to withdraw cash, but she entered an amount that was too high for the machine to process, causing the transaction to fail. Investigators and observers later speculated that this was a deliberate act by Gretchen, perhaps intended to sabotage the robbery, delay the process, or attract attention to her predicament. After the failed withdrawal, Gretchen saw an opportunity to escape. She accelerated away from the ATM at high speed, likely hoping to flee her attacker or draw attention to her distress. Her car traveled only about 150 yards before crashing into a parked vehicle. The noise of the collision drew the attention of 2 young men nearby, who rushed toward the scene to offer assistance. As the car came to a halt, a violent struggle erupted inside the vehicle. During this confrontation, the unknown man stabbed Gretchen once in the chest with his knife. Despite her severe injury, Gretchen managed to exit the vehicle, desperately seeking help.
What would y'all do in this situation? Like, if you were at gunpoint or, like, knife point and the person was trying to get you to do something? Like, I don't know. Because I think, like, when you're panicking, you don't think straight. But at the same time, it's like, if you give them what they want, you can make it back. Especially since you're a lawyer. That's one case, man. Like, take it. You need it that bad. But at the same time, it's like, what if you take it and then still, you? But at the same time, you got to remember, 9 times out of 10, most people robbing you are desperate people, not crazy people. And Unless you're just like some millionaire, trillionaire, like billionaire, and you did something crazy. But most of them, they don't want to shoot you. They don't even want to hurt you. They just want the money. So when you try to defend yourself or do something, you scare them. That's how a lot of people end up getting, lose their life in robberies, because they act on trying to defend themselves and scare the person. Not scare them, but just make the person, accidental murder.
Help. Eyewitnesses later recalled her crying out, "He stabbed me," as she emerged from the car. Meanwhile, her attacker exited on the opposite side and fled on foot, while also shouting, "He stabbed me," possibly in an attempt to confuse witnesses or delay pursuit. Emergency responders arrived quickly at the chaotic scene. Gretchen was rushed to the hospital, but the stab wound proved fatal, and she died shortly after arriving at the emergency room. The crime scene yielded several important clues, including the failed ATM transaction, which provided a timestamp and confirmed Gretchen's presence and actions during the abduction. Witnesses who saw the crash and the ensuing struggle were able to provide descriptions of the suspect and recount the sequence of events immediately following the stabbing. Forensic evidence collected from the car and surrounding area included fingerprints and biological material, which would later become crucial as DNA technology advanced.
Do you need a free and easy way to capture your gameplay? Introducing Outplayed. Record anything.
Initially, the crime was classified as a robbery gone wrong. The primary motive appeared to be financial gain, as evidenced by the attempt to force Gretchen to withdraw money. Is there going to be more to the story? However, the escalation to violence, particularly the fatal stabbing, suggested a willingness to use lethal force when the plan was thwarted. The randomness and brutality of the attack contributed to the case's notoriety and left the community feeling vulnerable. The murder of a respected attorney in such a public and violent manner shocked the city. Local residents, many of whom knew Gretchen personally or professionally, were horrified, and the case received extensive media coverage. The fact that the perpetrator evaded capture in the immediate aftermath only heightened fears and frustration. After Gretchen's murder, law enforcement faced years of frustration.
I was about to say, why didn't those boys go help her? But I ain't gonna lie. I'm all for helping people, but sometimes you gotta mind your business if you value your life. You know what I'm saying? Some people be crazy and they be ready to take someone else out too for not minding their business. My Uber driver was telling me about how he was confronting this guy for putting his hands on his woman, and I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what I would do in that situation because I've never been put in that situation. But I don't know, bro. I ain't trying to be the guy that lost his life over a female he didn't even know. You know what I'm saying? You feel me? It's gonna sound good, but again, we only live once. I don't know.
As the case went cold.
Call the cops.
Despite the presence of witnesses and the collection of some physical evidence at the scene, including a distinctive paisley hat believed to have been worn by the assailant, investigators were unable to identify a suspect. The randomness and brutality of the attack, combined with the absence of any clear connection between Gretchen and her killer, left the case shrouded in uncertainty. As the years passed, the Burford family and the broader community were left without closure. The critical breakthrough in the case came nearly 2 decades later, thanks to significant advancements in forensic DNA analysis. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, law enforcement agencies across the country began to systematically re-examine cold cases using new DNA technologies. Biological evidence that had been preserved from the original investigation, most notably DNA found in the hat left at the crime scene, was now amenable to analysis at a level of precision that had not been possible in 1988. In 2005, police submitted the DNA evidence from the hat to a national database. This time, the results yielded a match. The DNA profile corresponded to Tyrone Hommel, a man who was already incarcerated in Texas for unrelated offenses. The match was definitive, providing
Yo, he like this nigga. Yo, this dude like a Saints Row character, first of all. He don't even look real. Like, he look like an old 2K face creation for Kevin Garnett or Gary Payton, bro. I don't know. But like I was saying, imagine being this guy. You in jail for whatever the heck. Some type of stupid charge. Probably gonna be in there for like a couple months, maybe a year. Now you got life, buddy. That's crazy. He thought he got away with it. This nigga done lived the whole life.
Investigators with the first concrete lead in the case since the night of the murder.
This is
With the
crazy as
DNA
hell.
match in
But they
hand,
still gotta prove that hat
investigators
was part of-
revisited the details of the crime. They were able to reconstruct the sequence of events with greater confidence now that they knew the identity of the perpetrator. The evidence supported the theory that Tyrone had targeted Gretchen at random. The DNA evidence from the hat, combined with witness statements and the timeline established by ATM records, provided a compelling narrative that linked Tyrone to the crime beyond reasonable doubt. Once the DNA match was confirmed, authorities moved to formally charge Tyrone with the murder. Because he was already serving a sentence in Texas, arrangements were made to transfer him to California to face trial. The case against Tyrone was strong. In January 2008, he confessed to
tired
the
of looking at
murder,
this nigga.
providing details that were consistent with the evidence collected at the scene. His confession was not the product of coercion or a plea bargain, rather it was a straightforward admission of guilt in the face of overwhelming forensic proof. Tyrone pleaded guilty to the charge of murder, sparing the Burford family the ordeal of a lengthy trial.
Wow. Gregory Barker.
Gregory Richard Barker, often referred to as the Singles Bar Killer, is a convicted murderer and armed robber whose criminal activities spanned the 1980s and early 1990s. His case attracted national attention due to the brutality of his crimes, but he was eventually captured with the assistance of televised crime programs. The incident we're going to discuss also involved Hilda Amelia Roach, a 45-year-old administrative assistant living in
last name was
Montclair,
Roach.
Virginia, at the time of her murder in early April 1982. Known among friends and colleagues as a cautious yet sociable woman, Hilda enjoyed meeting new people and often visited singles bars in Washington, D.C. She had recently moved into a townhouse in the Lake Ridge area, a quiet and
What's the difference between a regular bar and a singles bar? I'm guessing those are specifically for singles, but like at the same time, like isn't most bars for singles?
regarded suburban community. Those who knew her described her as
Never
independent
mind.
and
I
reserved.
get it. Some people go to bars with their family, friends. Some people go with their loved one. I mean, they're like the significant others. So these bars probably are like you wouldn't really catch couples in there and stuff. Never mind. Sorry, that was stupid.
With no known enemies. On the evening of April 1st, 1982, she went out to a singles bar where she met Gregory Barker. Barker introduced himself as Alex Graham, claiming to be a government contractor who had just relocated from Florida. He told Hilda he was living at the Oakwood Apartments in Alexandria, Virginia, and presented himself as a man of means, even driving a luxury car that caught her attention. Friends later recalled Hilda mentioning Barker's apparent wealth, but they also warned her to be cautious, noting that appearances could be deceiving and identities easily fabricated. Late that night, Hilda returned to her townhouse around 11:30 p.m. Barker accompanied her, allegedly, to return a wallet she had misplaced earlier in the evening. Forensic evidence would later reveal that a violent struggle took place in her living room. The room showed clear signs of a confrontation. Furniture was overturned, and Hilda's wallet was found discarded on the floor. The struggle moved from the living room to her bedroom, where investigators found her clothing torn off. Adhesive tape residue was discovered on her wrists, indicating she had been bound. It was in this room that Barker sexually assaulted her, a detail confirmed by forensic analysis. After the assault, Barker forced Hilda into the trunk of his car. Investigators later found a distinctive shoe print inside the trunk, which would become a crucial piece of evidence linking Barker to the crime. He then drove her approximately 9 miles to a wooded area behind John F. Patty Elementary School in Montclair. There, he led her about 150 feet into the woods. In a chilling act of violence, Barker shot Hilda once in the back of the head with a .38 caliber revolver. The bullet entered at a downward angle consistent with an execution-style killing. Her body, partially nude and with her hands bound behind her back, was discovered by a school custodian at 7:15 a.m. the following morning.
Yo, this is someone's daughter that lost her life in this way, bro. Like, or not even just that. This is just a human that lost a life on some movie, cartoon type stuff. Hands behind her back, partially nude, with her head down. Bro, she got violated to the max in her last breaths of life. That's crazy, bro. Nigga, some people are sick.
She was found lying face up with her legs spread apart. The investigation into the murder was meticulous and relied heavily on forensic science.
This nigga
At her
is
townhouse,
crazy,
police
bro.
documented the overturned furniture and scattered belongings, as well as adhesive tape fragments and a partial fingerprint on a nightstand in her bedroom. The absence of forced entry suggested that Hilda had willingly let her attacker into her home, reinforcing the theory that she had known Barker, at least superficially, from their encounter earlier that evening. At the wooded crime scene, investigators noted that the soil and leaf litter found on Hilda's body matched samples taken from Barker's car trunk. The bullet recovered from her skull was consistent with a .38 caliber revolver, though the weapon itself was never
revolver, too.
located. A major breakthrough in the case came several months later in July 1982 when a restaurant manager who had interacted with Barker agreed to undergo hypnosis to recall details about the phone number Barker had provided. Under
Hypnosis.
hypnosis, the manager was able to recall part of the number, which detectives cross-referenced with lease records at Oakwood Apartments. This led them to Barker, who had vacated his apartment only days after the murder. Further investigation revealed that the partial
Crazy.
fingerprint found in Hilda's bedroom matched Barker's military.
That's some crazy ass shit. Went through hypnosis to recall the number. Does that really work? Niggas need to put me through hypnosis. See if I can remember certain things.
records, definitively placing him at the scene. The shoe print found in his car trunk also matched impressions at the abduction site, providing another direct link to the crime. Additionally, witnesses played a significant role in piecing together the timeline of events. Neighbors reported seeing a man matching Barker's description at Hilda's townhouse late that night, and one specifically remembered a luxury vehicle parked outside around midnight. These accounts helped corroborate the forensic timeline and supported the prosecution's case that Barker had targeted Hilda after meeting her at the Singles bar. Barker's psychological profile added another layer of complexity to the investigation. A Vietnam veteran and former Army intelligence officer, Barker was known for adopting false identities and impersonating government agents. Detectives theorized that he used these fabricated personas to gain the trust of his victims, employing tactics inspired by spy fiction.
This ninja
His
is
modus
crazy.
operandi involved targeting single women in social settings, presenting himself as affluent and trustworthy, and using rented vehicles to reinforce his fabricated identity. While Barker was typically careful to avoid leaving forensic evidence, such as wearing gloves during his later robberies, he was less careful in Hilda's case, leaving behind fingerprints and other traces that would ultimately lead to his conviction. Following the murder,
nigga looks
between
crazy,
December
too.
1983 and March 1984, Barker moved to Las Vegas where he executed 3 armed bank robberies. Unlike
What
his
the
earlier
fuck?
violent offenses, Barker's approach
This nigga think he living in GTA, executing women after doing it with him. Robbing banks, fake personas. This nigga think he living in a video game.
to these robberies was a lot less direct and placed an emphasis on psychological intimidation. In each instance, Barker entered the bank alone, dressed in a manner that would not draw undue attention. He approached the teller with a note demanding cash, a tactic designed to avoid drawing the attention of other customers or security personnel. The notes were succinct but threatening, making it clear that he was armed and willing to use force if necessary. However, Barker rarely displayed a weapon openly, relying instead on the implied threat to compel compliance. This approach minimized the likelihood of immediate resistance or intervention by bank staff or patrons. Barker's
So what is this type of robbery called though? So is this armed robbery or is this just robbery?
demeanor during the robberies was calm and controlled. Witnesses
Imagine being able to build anything, for any reason, in any style.
later
Cause like in my head I'm thinking like he's insisting that he has a weapon. So in the bank teller's mind or the person he's robbing's mind, they're at some type of danger at gunpoint or weapon point. So is that like still armed robbery, or is that a different type of robbery?
Described him as polite but firm, never raising his voice or displaying overt aggression. This composure contributed to the initial difficulty in identifying him, as he left little impression beyond the immediate fear induced by the robbery itself. In total, Barker managed to steal approximately $80,000 in today's money adjusted for inflation. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department quickly recognized that the robberies were likely the work of a single individual, given the similarities in method and the close timing of the crimes. Surveillance footage, while grainy and inconclusive, suggested a man in his late 30s to early 40s of average build who took care to obscure his features and avoid leaving physical evidence. The use of demand notes rather than overt violence further complicated efforts to develop a clear suspect profile. A key development in the investigation came when one of the tellers, Tamori, provided a detailed description of the robber's appearance and mannerisms. Although Tamori was unable to identify Barker in a live lineup shortly after the robberies, he later positively identified Barker from a photographic lineup presented during the federal investigation. This identification became a focal point of Barker's later appeals, as his defense argued that the process was improper because his counsel was not present and he had not been notified of the identification before trial. Despite these objections, the court ruled that the identification was admissible, noting that the teller's initial inability to identify Barker in person did not preclude a subsequent positive identification from photographs. Forensic accounting also played a role in the investigation. Some of the stolen bills were traced to Barker's subsequent expenditures in the Las Vegas area, providing further circumstantial evidence of his involvement. Additionally, investigators discovered that he had failed to appear for a scheduled court hearing related to the robberies in 1984, prompting the issuance of a federal warrant for his arrest. This failure to appear marked the beginning of Barker's years as a fugitive, during which he continued to use aliases and move frequently to avoid detection. On March 25, 1991, at 12:03 p.m., Gregory Barker was arrested at his Phoenix workplace without incident. During his initial interrogation, he claimed that he was a government agent and that his arrest was part of a military cover-up. He insisted that everything he had done was part of covert government operations, a claim that investigators dismissed as another fabrication rooted in his long-standing pattern of deception. Following his arrest, Barker was extradited to Nevada, where he was tried and convicted on 3 counts of armed robbery, receiving a 20-year federal prison sentence. He was then extradited to Virginia to stand trial for the abduction and murder of Hilda Roach. In May 1992, Barker was convicted of both crimes and sentenced to 110 years in prison, with 50 years suspended, ensuring he would serve at least 60 years behind bars.
Man, what? Keep that shit. Whatchamacallit? There's some crazy people out here, bro. That's all I can say. There's some crazy people out here. I don't know, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. I think the craziest one for sure was the final one. The second one was crazy in how long it took for them to find evidence and they still was able to solve it. But by far, it's not even close. The third one was crazy. That dude was an insane person, bro. Like, he literally thought he was living in GTA. But as y'all can see up here, we about to hit 1,600 subs. So y'all boys go ahead and show some love, support, and yeah, help a brother out. See y'all boys in the next reaction. I love y'all boys. Peace.